Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and a warm welcome from San Francisco, California, to our audience globally. This is Tarkan Maner, CEO at Nexenta, and I have a phenomenal group with me here, right here in St. Regis Hotel in San Francisco for our live webinar. And again, I welcome everyone who's joining us today. We're continuing our series of these webinars that we're holding on a quarterly basis, and today obviously we have some very exciting news. Basically, I'll get right to it. As you can see also probably on the slides, Lenovo and Nexenta are announcing a strategic partnership, basically redefining open source collaborative software-defined storage market yet again. And I have a great group of folks, colleagues with me here on stage. And this webinar is basically live streamed, but at the same time also recorded for those folks who might be arriving late. At the end of the few slides per presenter here on the stage, we're going to have also some Q&A sessions at the end. And we have also a few hashtags through Twitter that you can ask some of these questions also through Twitter. I have today with me Henry Baltizar from 451 Research. Hi, Henry.
Hi, Tarkan.
Good to have you. We have our dear friend David Lincoln right next to Henry, who is the GM of Lenovo Storage Business Unit. Hi, David.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Good to see you. Awesome. And then we have our dear friend Ran Kurup. Ran is with Intel. Hi, Ran.
Hey, Tarkan. Good to be here.
Good to see you again. And our dear friend also, Ram, I'm going to call you Ram, because that name is super difficult for me to pronounce. But Ramadurai is basically head of the tech practice at Wipro, based in the Bay Area, but I know he spends half of his life on airlines.
In Paris.
and he also spent in one of the most beautiful cities in the world is part of his life on behalf of Wipro in Paris. So we have a lot of common history. Hi, Ram.
Hi, Tarkan. Very happy to be here.
Good to have you too, my friend. So as I mentioned, we have questions at the end. Please use Nexenta handle at Nexenta to ask these questions. We have a group of folks here in the room as well as virtually available to streamline those questions to us at the end of these presentations. So I just go right into it. Again, here is Tarkan Maner for those folks who do not have the video footage, but maybe join us only through audio. Basically, I'm the CEO at Nexenta, basically the leader in software-defined storage market. As we joke, before even software-defined storage was a term, we used to use this term as Nexenta, and people used to make fun of us. And yet again, after those years, that's those niche startup years, now software-defined data center and software-defined storage within that software-defined data center vision is becoming mainstream, and that's why we're here today. And Nexenta's vision is obviously, for many who knows Nexenta and the market well, is what we call any vision, any strategy. What we mean by that is any user, any app, any workload via any stack and any protocol on any hardware and media, from flash to disk to hybrid, to support your cloud environments, whether that's a private, public, government, or a hybrid cloud environment as you're redefining your business, regardless of industry, regardless of vertical industry, regardless of geography or size of a customer. So we believe in 100% software redefinition and control, with giving total freedom to our customers, obviously with no lock-in, vendor lock-in, no bait and switch, and no obviously a rip and replace. And that's been our story as a company with our large open source community, now almost 46,000 plus community members around the world. Many of them are on the video stream today, and almost 1.6 exabytes in production today. Almost 1,600 petabytes in production today is going to this new software-defined world through this vision and strategy and product portfolio. We are based here in Santa Clara, but with big R&D centers as Nexenta in Denver, which is the hotbed of storage, with amazing storage architecture skill sets. As many of you know, we also have a higher education program working with companies and school systems like UC system in California, University of Colorado system in Colorado, We work heavily with UC Denver, as well as schools and universities in the space, doing a lot of research around open source collaboration and software-defined data center innovation in Amsterdam and other locations. So our R&D centers include locations like Santa Clara, Denver, Colorado, Amsterdam, India, Bangalore, and as well as Beijing, China. And obviously a big focus as we moved our business from an open source, pure open source project into a mainstream enterprise delivery model with service and support and partners, and around 42 patents around our IP, both scale out and scale up architectures to deliver software-defined data center capabilities to our customers who are basically trying to have a lower cost model, freedom of choice model, and fast time to market model in their data centers. And obviously, data intelligence and security are all part of the story. As some of the analysts are going to cover that as well in the space. Henry from Fourth One is a leader of it. We are seeing data storage, basically capacity is growing from 6 zettabytes to 60 zettabytes. That's with a Z, zebra. From 2016 to 2020, meaning with social media, social commerce, rich media, mobility, Internet of Things, and big data, now than ever, our customers, enterprises in any sector, in any vertical from public to private sector, need low-cost infrastructure to deal with this data inflation, and especially everything is being internet connected, is going to create huge opportunities for companies like us on the stage. And that's why we're talking about this new vision around open source collaboration and software-defined innovation in the data center and to the end user, from network to compute, and obviously the last frontier, storage, where has been no revolution over the past 3 decades. Legacy hardware vendors did a great job, basically selling very high gross margin storage systems at very big margin and big price. It costs today normally $1,000 per terabyte, but today you can buy a Western Digital drive in your Apple store for less than $30 per terabyte. It begs the question, where is that $970 per terabyte is going? And obviously that's a good business practice, but not necessarily for our customers. And we are believing in a big way Intel infrastructure, standard x86, SSDs, and also hybrid systems now taking over, and big flash focus obviously on top of that, with Intel and companies like Lenovo delivering an end-to-end user experience with service and support at a cost model never seen before. Now we're seeing cost models at 40 cents per gigabyte, all flash infrastructure, standard x86 Lenovo servers, delivering high IOPS capabilities never seen before. Again, these price points never seen before, and it's happening today. And they do not require bait and switch, they don't require vendor lock-in, and they don't require rip and replace, with a 100% software focus with companies like Nexenta. So it's a big story, big game change. As you can see in the slide, everything is moving from legacy hardware now into this open software-defined data center mode. According to analysts, this market is going to be growing almost 70% year over year over the next 10 years, from 2016 to 2027 timeframe. Today, the market is in an inflection point. Obviously, about 5 years ago, when we got involved as a company and talked about software-defined storage, nobody believed in it, and some people mocked it, to be frank. And now we're seeing a lot of deployments are happening. That's why we have Wipro here also as a leader in systems integration and services, that they started their own open data center practice to take advantage of this opportunity and give customers huge cost benefits. So having said all this, Nexenta model is a partner model, a channel model. We have huge partnerships with 20,000 plus public cloud service providers, with companies like AT&T, Vodafone, Scale Matrix, and many others like Amazon. And they take our software technology built on their commodity hardware systems and build their own solutions now. Now, some of the legacy system vendors seeing the pain. Now they're trying to change their model into software-defined. But companies like Nexenta and Lenovo are starting from scratch, delivering basically a software-defined data center vision without any legacy business to protect. Basically, everything is for the customer and for customer's choice. And with today, our 6,000 enterprise customers, both medium-sized customers and large enterprise customers, as well as our service providers who are servicing you as consumers. We are delivering an open source, collaborative, software-defined data center model and delivery with service and support built into it, ourselves from Nexenta and Lenovo, but also beyond that with our partners like Intel and Wipro. So portfolio is very straightforward. Scale up and scale out architectures for different workloads, any workloads, from cold archives to hyperscale, high performance computing, and from enterprise ERP database applications to active archive applications, from VMware to Docker and Kubernetes and everything in between. And that delivery model requires an open system architecture. An open system architecture requires basically any vision in terms of supporting different protocols, from block to file to object and everything in between. This way we can support those workloads and apps and users at a very low-cost model, given 100% total freedom and choice to the customers for them to use the disk, the flash, the SSD of their choice, and also change their application development models from VMware to Docker and everything in between. Nexenta Connect is basically our integration model, integration IP to those cloud platforms, again to VMware, to Citrix, to Microsoft Hyper-V, to OpenStack developers like Canonical, Mirantis, and Red Hat, and others, as well as I mentioned earlier, solutions like Mesos, like Docker and Kubernetes. So our application developers can develop applications and basically assign storage and infrastructure capabilities basically in a very streamed way, in a very open way, making it much easier for them to deploy those applications, test those applications, and obviously move those applications into production, making infrastructure seamless, making infrastructure low cost. And Nexenta Fusion, our solution, is basically on top, delivering all these integration capabilities, orchestration capabilities, predictive modeling capabilities, basically, and management capability, not only for Nexenta assets, but also for Lenovo, Intel assets, and any other asset underneath from a management perspective. So management of the storage assets and managing those storage assets directly, both for scale up and scale out architectures, from block, file to object, all one single pane of glass orchestration with predictive modeling. And again, our vision is going from apps to workloads to stacks to protocols to infrastructure. We're super happy and excited about our Lenovo relationship, as Lenovo is leading in the x86 platform with Intel, basically changing the server platform business for our joint customers, now using Nexenta stack on top for scale up and scale out reference architectures. Again, small, medium, large systems with all-flash environment with Intel technology, as well as hybrid environments and all-disk environments. For those workloads, they're still super cost-conscious. We have customers deploying cold archive systems, backup and archive systems, file shares, home directories, IoT environments, VDI and virtualization environments, and legacy enterprise applications and new types of web applications, and obviously high-performance computing applications like University of Texas or Cambridge University or University of Denver, deploying research, basically applications around genomic research, nuclear research with Berkeley, University of Berkeley. All these type of applications are requiring very high IOPS and sometimes very large capacity backup and archive capabilities. So Nexenta can deliver any workload, any app, on any stack, from VMware to Google to Cloud Stack on OpenStack and Docker and everything in between. And again, very key, for any protocol, from block to file to object, with these defined arrays we're announcing today with Lenovo. And I know David is going to talk about this a little bit more from the announcement perspective. And again, single point of contact service and support around these reference architectures for these two types of architectures around scale up and scale out, supporting all these protocols in one shot. And again, we're super happy to be here today with this amazing group. I'm going to turn the virtual microphone to my friend Henry Baltizar at 451. Henry is one of the leading analysts in the space focusing on software-defined data center and storage in a big way. He's been in this space for a long time, and he has some interesting primary research to prove these points on our customers' behalf. And then we're going to move the microphone to David, to Ran at Intel, and then to Ram at Wipro. Happens to be actually a NextCenter customer today, deploying some of these things internally, what we call drinking their own champagne before they deliver these type of solutions to their customers. I don't use the word dog food on purpose. Henry, microphone is yours.
Thanks so much for your time today, and thank you, Tarkan, for having me here today. So, my name is Henry Baltizar. I'm Research Director of Storage at 451 Research. I've been covering storage for a better part of close to 20 years now, which is a very long time. I think one of the interesting things about storage, or maybe one of the more painful things about storage, is the market in general doesn't change very quickly, but as you see from some of the slides I'm going to be talking about, there's a lot of impetus to make changes going forward. When we look at what are the top storage pain points, it's interesting that a lot of these pain points are still the same, but they're getting worse. The top pain point for the customers that we surveyed in our most recent survey showed that dealing with data capacity and data growth was their biggest problem. And what makes matters even worse is the second biggest problem is they're even having a hard time dealing with basic capacity planning and forecasting. So not only is their data growing at a rapid rate, they're not even sure how fast it's going to grow going forward, which is really scary for a lot of people that have to deal with day-to-day storage management. The other key thing, number 3, is should be no surprise to storage customers, but high cost of storage was the 3rd highest rating in terms of other issues that are problems for storage industries. I think if you look down the list, there's a couple of other things that I want to point out. You'd notice that dealing with multiple storage silos is a big issue, same with dealing with a lack of skilled staff, and also dealing with storage migrations. A lot of these issues show that there's definitely a need for an improvement in management, and I think that's also going to drive needs for more automation and better integration. Looking at how storage is growing, this should be a really scary slide for most people, but when I look at this, the thing that comes to mind first is 56% of our respondents are going to grow at an annual growth rate of 25% or more in the coming years. What's even scarier is if you look at the top half, over 20% or so are going to grow 50% or more. So that means the problem you have today is going to be more than two times worse in just 2 years. So really, there's definitely an impetus to change. We need to start figuring out better ways of dealing with this because the growth of data is not going to slow down. The other thing that also drives change is the fact that if you look at what's going on in storage spending, while we're starting to see some incremental upgrades in terms of the amount of budget that's going to be allocated to storage, it's interesting to see that only 18% of our respondents are going to have a significant change. And to me, a significant change is 25% or more. So if you contrast that to the last data point we saw, clearly right now we're at a point where storage growth is outpacing budget growth. And because of that, we're going to have to get to higher levels of efficiencies and newer technologies to be able to deal with this. Traditionally, I think the biggest problem I've seen in the storage industry is really a lot of storage appliances are really stuck in swim lanes. And when I mean that, just to illustrate the point, if you look at what we sell today, we still sell a ton of NAS, we still sell a lot of fiber channel arrays with green points. The problem the storage industry has in general, though, is that storage industry doesn't solve problems without creating new platforms, unfortunately. So now, while fiber channel arrays have been around for a long time, now that people are talking about newer or higher performance use cases, we're starting to see the rise of AFAs. But AFAs, in general, are a totally different platform from some of the fiber channel systems that we've been selling in the past. Likewise, if you look at the back-end side of this, though we still sell a lot of enterprise NAS, there's been more of a drive towards scale-out NAS and object storage platforms, and for many vendors, that has led to two or more different platforms being added just to deal with this new use case. To me, the way this illustrates is when you start looking at environments, unfortunately, you have the poor storage administrator at the bottom here, and the big issue they have is they're trying to juggle these resources and they're trying to juggle workloads across these disparate systems. Even though a lot of these systems are based on commodity x86, they're using commodity flash or they're using enterprise flash, regardless of most of those hardware on a hardware basis is very similar. But because of the way that storage environments have been selling things in swim lanes, we've been stuck with these very rigid silos that make it very difficult for us to deal with this. That leads to things like disruptive replacement cycles. Everybody in most of these environments are switching every 3 years because that's the way that they design their support contracts. We also have complex management because each of these things are different operating systems. Each of these things have different management tools which get very, very difficult. And as a result, the biggest issue which I see is because the poor storage administrator is spending the whole time juggling, we're not really getting fast provisioning. In a lot of the surveys I've done in the past, we found that very few percent, maybe 20% or so of enterprises actually have the ability to provision storage in under an hour or less, which is very difficult, especially if you're trying to compete against cloud infrastructures where you can get resources almost instantaneously. So as we start moving, as customer expectations continue to rise, we're going to have to make changes to make things faster. Yet to me, I think software-defined storage can potentially be one of the key things that'll help us get to those parts. I think we're going to have to start moving to using more commodity infrastructure in the middle instead of buying these locked-in proprietary appliances. And I think we're also going to have to get to better forms of storage virtualization and storage provisioning and management. So in effect, we'd be moving more towards service catalog model where we have more automation and no need to have a physical storage administrator dealing with every single LUN edition or volume edition that they have to have. I think this also creates flexibility too, because if we can do things on a software level, you can get to a stage where your next array actually becomes an app running on commodity hardware or industry standard hardware, which I think is going to make things a lot more flexible. And I think that's definitely a benefit that we've seen, especially in some of the early adopters like in the service provider space. When we ask enterprises about what they're thinking for the future, 54% of respondents have felt that their architectures are going to become more software-defined going forward, which is going to be a key issue. I think a lot of people are realizing that while they're still comfortable, while there's still more of a bias towards going towards appliances, the key thing here is that people know there has to be change, there needs to be more agility, and part of that's going to come from going to these more automated software-defined environments. Just to sum things up, in terms of where we're at with the software-defined storage value propositions, right now the number one thing that I see when we see people deploying this early on, it's really focused on cost savings right now. A lot of it has been looking at the use of commodity instead of having these locked-in, expensive marked up hard drives and SSDs and storage systems. Also, in the service provider space, we're also seeing some interesting things in terms of people going with a pay-as-you-go pricing model, which provides a lot more flexibility, especially for a service provider that doesn't really know exactly what's going to come in. When I look at the market, it's interesting to see service providers because they tend to be a couple years ahead of where the enterprise is at. Because as enterprises start evolving, they start to get more evolved, they're going to have to start becoming less rigid, and they have to start looking about creating more generalized standard service classes so that people can get what they want really quickly. And I think the other aspect is, as Tarkan mentioned before, is highlighting the value of taking advantage of commodity resources. While cost savings is important, I definitely want to emphasize, I think the next two areas are really where you're going to see the biggest benefits over the next couple of years. To me, one of the best parts about software-defined storage is innovation. The ability to take advantage of new technologies without a forklift upgrade, being able to take your software storage and move it to the latest and greatest platform, that's going to be disruptive, especially when you start thinking about the things that are coming down the line, whether it be some of the composable infrastructures that are happening in server land, whether it be some of the 3D Crosspoint stuff that Intel and Micron are working on. You're going to want to be able to take advantage of those new technologies as they come available and when you're ready to use them, and not necessarily have that dictated by your storage vendor. So I think that's going to be interesting, especially when you start looking at some of these other new and emerging technologies like object storage. You're going to want to be able to take advantage of that when you want it. You're going to want to be able to switch and change things based on what you need. And I think that's another big value in terms of software-defined storage. Let's not forklift something out. Let's change the app, or let's add more functionality instead of being stuck to a box. And the last, and I think the most important thing, is also the management savings. We need to start automating provisioning better. We also need to spend less time on maintenance. And I think when we start looking at what could be possible with software-defined storage, especially if you use your developer resources in-house, or maybe you wind up using a partner, like something like a Wipro or something like that, there's a good opportunity for you to start automating this because, quite frankly, while a lot of administrators don't like to do the automation, at the end of the day, the problem is getting too heavy for them to just do everything manually. And for you to compete and for you to really stay strong in this area and stay competitive, especially against cloud competition and other competition, you're going to have to make things more streamlined and faster. And I think that's going to be a big key towards why you're going to start looking at software-defined environments in the future. And with that, I'm going to hand over to David.
Right on. Thanks, Henry. Hey, everybody. So first things first, I want to say congrats to Tarkan, a baby girl born last Thursday, right?
Yes, last Thursday.
And if you can believe it, this is no joke. You're coming back from the hospital and on a conference call. Like when I couldn't believe it when I said, hey, are you sure you want to? And sure enough, he was on. So you want to talk about dedication and commitment. But
Thank you.
So it's been just a super relationship from the get-go. And let me just get into it a little bit. You step back and you think about the storage industry, And I don't know that we've ever seen this much flux. And as these seismic changes are happening, Henry talked about data exploding. They are. Data is exploding, and IT budgets are imploding. So you got that, and you got all the industry players. Different things happen. Dynamics there. You probably have heard about a couple acquisitions. So you've got all these plates, tectonic plates, shifting. What a fantastic opportunity for a player like Lenovo to get in in a big way. So as you see in the chart, in fact, this is from Wikibon, you can see this dynamic of kind of legacy traditional storage declining over the coming decade and being replaced with server-based storage. Obviously, that plays perfectly well to Lenovo's strengths, being the best server company on the planet. You can debate a little bit the rate and pace of that change, but unquestionably it's coming. So Lenovo's strategy in this case is we're not asking folks to hard jump into the blue. If there's anything that Lenovo stands for, it's about the customer. It's about choice. It's about TCO. You've heard a lot about TCO, in Tarkan and Henry's pieces. We are completely against vendor lock-in. So that's really how we plan to attack this. So you can see on the chart. I won't read you bullet by bullet, but that's going to be our strategy. And as we were surveying partners that we want to get into a strategic partnership across the kind of the SDS ecosystem. Who better? There's a handful of folks that we are considering, and NextCenter rose to the top. So it's been between the strategic direction NextCenter's going on, our strategic direction, in combination with Intel RAN and some of the programs being run there, and then now with our friends at Wipro, we just see a complete opportunity to disrupt the hell out of this market. So, but with that, so as I said, it's about choice, it's about TCO, and it's about confidence. So as we hit the next slide, nobody does hardware better than Lenovo, full stop, period. And combining that strength, that property of Lenovo, with the solution expertise of Nexenta, that's a winning combination. Number one CSAT last 2 years, quarter after quarter. Number one in reliability, award-winning, worldwide global coverage, outstanding channel, outstanding service. That, as I said, married with Tarkan and Nexenta, it's a hell of a combination. So this RA slide, as Tarkan said, live now. It's a little bit redundant. I won't hit it again, but the best way to think about and it's a busy slide. Good, better, best, scale up, scale out, got it all covered. While we're moving fast with Nexenta, this is kind of the first instantiation. Bigger and better things coming later this year. It's our intention to launch an appliance. We know, again, in the spirit of choice, some folks, they want to sort of meet and do the bundle in the channel, meet in the channel. No problem, got that covered. Some parts of the market want it factory preloaded. No problem, you got that too. So however the market wants those consumption models, we love it. So that's I think that's short and sweet. This is really kind of a redundant to the last slide, but that's it in a nutshell. Anything else?
Just want to add to what David just said, and I didn't want to steal your thunder about the announcement, but we're super excited about this relationship. And actually, we had several calls with some of our customers and partners, and some of them on the live webinar today, including the analyst coverage. Software-defined storage was a niche play 5 years ago. Usually smart people with high IQs at these web scale companies figured this out and built their own systems. They didn't go buy a bunch of legacy storage appliances because the cost model would not work. And now mainstream CIOs, regardless of size, regardless of location and vertical, choosing, as David talked about, a software-defined data storage, data center model with service instance support from companies like Wipro, and building this on standardized high performance infrastructure from Intel, x86, Intel SSDs and beyond, and connecting with market leaders like Lenovo and Nexenta. And as David mentioned, we have options. No vendor lock-in. Again, this is a big deal with us. I know I'm boring some people to tears with these statements, but no rip and replace. We have customers today. We deployed a large customer just recently who had some IBM mainframe and Unix servers in the back end on top of some of the work we've done with Lenovo and others, and said, can you guys also support our data lakes on these legacy systems, which are not open systems? And our software did that too. So becoming an orchestration software on top, making sure the customer pays less and there's no vendor lock-in or rip and replace, which has been the basic story model and deployment model for the past 3 decades with the legacy systems. Legacy hardware system vendors did a great job, build an industry, but now it's time to disruption, and that disruption is taking place. And Intel is obviously a big leader in this space, telling the story with the Intel infrastructure, making sure the systems are open. And obviously this reference architecture model that Lenovo and Nexenta are announcing around scale up and scale out, as David mentioned, small, medium, large systems, all flash environments, hybrid environments, and all disk environments for any workload. Again, on any cloud platform, from VMware to Citrix to Microsoft, to Docker to Kubernetes, to OpenStack, to Mirantis, to Canonical, and everything in between. So give choice, and very importantly, as David mentioned, I'm repeating that, but giving a single point of contact, service and support 24/7, and with these validated arrays. And phase 2, integration, further R&D integration and appliance model with factory loading is going to give us a lot of opportunity to give the customer delight and support to our customers globally. And we are super happy to have a partner like Lenovo globally, super strong in the space, and with all these awards, and obviously customer base and channel power. So on that note, I guess next speaker.
Well,
let
me just say one thing.
Sure.
Actually, I just thought of a great way to bring you in.
Sure.
So you step back and think about what's happening in the storage industry, and it's a lot the innovator's dilemma. Christensen's theory, where you talked earlier about people overpaying, and that's what's happening in storage today. The customers are overpaying for features they don't need. It's ripe for disruption. We're talking choice. We're talking TCO, and by moving to a server-based SAN, we're applying Moore's law for the first time to storage. Anyway, I think it's brilliant, and we're excited. So with that, there you go, Ram.
Fantastic, thank you. Thanks, David, and Tarkan. This is it's great to be on this panel because really we have a shared vision, right? And we've been in our respective companies working on this for many years, and beginning to see this inflection in the storage industry. Which is only going to accelerate. So let me talk a little bit about what Intel's role is here and how we work with Nexenta, Lenovo, and Wipro. I'll get into this a lot deeper, but we believe that storage modernization is a key vector, right, as we go forward, and this is what the industry is working towards, and end users are beginning to accelerate as they have to deal with large amounts of data, and I'll talk about Intel's role in what we're calling seamless data services infrastructure, which I think kind of hits the core of what we should be all driving towards. So first of all, I think we heard from the other presenters here, and I'm not going to try to restate it, but really the cloud and the enterprise, these have been facing, it's because a reflection of the challenges that customers have faced that we saw the cloud become such a big deal. Enterprises are also changing simply because the amount of data, the velocity, the volume, and the value of it that's hitting them. Traditional infrastructures are not able to keep up, and look at what we see as kind of the missing link is expectation from consumers of the data. This is across business and consumers, is to be able to get access to your data at any time, any device at required performance, right? And we all know performance doesn't have to be equally high. It's different levels of performance depending on the type of data and type of device. And this drives the need for what we're calling storage modernization, right? Very, very critical. So if you look at the fact why this is essential, this is not a nice to have, this is not a choice. I mean, customers of storage and IT have to make this change because look on either side, right? You've got the Internet of Things that is beginning to grow dramatically. We're talking about billions with a B devices over the next few years, feeding data up into the cloud, and in the IT infrastructure having to handle this, right? We've got other moving parts like the media transition. Now, 3D XPoint is an example. Our NVMe drives from Intel. They don't just make things faster, they make things possible that you were never able to do before, right? And that's the key, new use cases. And the architectures are, scale up and scale out, a combination. You've got automation in various pieces, but nothing really to kind of pull it all together. There's orchestration work going on in this industry. I think partners like Nexenta have been doing a great job of addressing this, as is Lenovo. But we have to, drive towards this, what we're calling the seamless data services, because it's what's required at the end of the day is the value that the end customer sees, right? And what this results in is a agile, automated, and secure type of infrastructure for the end customer that they need on an end-to-end basis to be able to kind of drive value. Right? So the fact that actually, apologies, let me go back. So for a second, so the role of IT, right, and the role of IT, as we all know, has changed. I mean, it used to be, and I came from IT many years ago. IT was really a cost of doing business, and anytime you made an investment in IT infrastructure, it added to the cost of the product you were selling. And I think, and Henry talked about this a little bit, right? That's changed, where IT is now driving the value of a product, and it's actually a revenue generator. And when you turn that on its head, and the cloud made this, kind of started this trend. Once you look at it that way, then an investment in IT, and this is where storage modernization comes in, is no longer a cost of doing business. It's actually a revenue generator, and this is a key change. And this drives this, the need for an agile infrastructure, agile business models that you can drive. So what's and thank you to Tarkan and David earlier. Talking about Intel's contribution here, what is our role here? What is it that we can play, right? So Intel has a whole portfolio of products, but we really have kind of a three-vector argument, right? First is, and David mentioned this, right? Server-based storage, right? Now the fact that it is defined by software that runs on standard high-volume servers, right? Nothing special in the hardware. Take the cost out, deliver cost-effective solutions to the market. And you see on the left graphic, the evolution from 2015 and through 2017 and beyond. It's all about open. It's all about that, again, not to beat this horse to death, but avoid that vendor lock-in, right? Open, that customers are now able to control their own destiny. And server-based storage is just taking off. I mean, that is going to be the de facto storage architecture out there for the bulk of data. And we build that, think of that as the foundation, and we build on top of that these flash technologies, NVMe technologies, SSDs, NVDIMMs, and so on, that would actually drive new use cases, right? And this is the key. I mean, we don't even know what we don't know, what's possible. But when you kind of take out those bottlenecks that are created by today's infrastructure, you're able to do a lot more. And all that kind of flows into the software-defined storage world, where we, working with the ecosystem, right, with Nexenta, with Lenovo, with Wipro, are able to actually deliver this end-user value, right? That's the vision. I won't go through every single product we've got, but Intel's a lot more than our Xeon processors, by the way, right? I mean, we're talking about Optane, we're talking about SSDs for the data center, we're talking about software like our storage acceleration library, cache acceleration software, and so on, that drives towards this. So we really welcome this opportunity, again, to share the stage with you and talk to the world about this new vision. Right.
Super.
Okay. With that, let me hand it off to Ram.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Tarkan. Very interesting to be on the stage. This is the second time I'm here like this, and super excited the way this whole storage industry is getting disrupted, and the way Wipro and Nexenta have worked together along with Intel, and in the future with Lenovo, how to disrupt this industry much faster. I just want to take 2 minutes before I get into the slides and quickly introduce Wipro. Wipro is an 8 billion organization. Purely focused on system integration, handling different kind of businesses, going to the market with businesses like healthcare, manufacturing and high tech, banking and finance, energy and utilities. It's been there for the last 20 years. We have been growing at a CAGR of 33%. we have been doing extremely well in the market. But last 4 or 5 years, what we have seen, irrespective of the business line, what we cater to, the data center is definitely getting disrupted, completely getting disrupted. And that's where I want to touch upon the next 2-3 slides. What is the business really looking at? And I'm going to steal something from what David just said. Very nicely he put it. Data is exploding. IT budgets are imploding, right? So that's exactly what we are seeing. Now, if I look at it, just a few data pointers. The information storage has gone up 4x times the world economy, right? And we are still talking about paying millions of dollars for storage, compute, and network, right? And that IT budgets, to Dave's point, is completely imploding. So we are trying to see how this whole thing, a system integrator can, like Wipro, working with the Intels, NextCenters, and the Lenovos of the world, really address these concerns of a CIO, right? So if I look at it quickly, a few data points. One is, what is the business today looking at? I'll just take a data point of agility. Google's data center grew by 10x times in the last decade, right? So that's the amount of investments they have made on the infrastructure. Take the flexibility part. Instagram, I was looking at it, 300 million subscribers added in the last 3 years, right? It's a 3x growth for Instagram, right? Alibaba sales, single day sales is 10x the volumes that normally happens for the rest of the year, right? So it's a huge flexibility that I need to bring in the infrastructure. Innovation and AWS announcements you would have seen, they've been in the last 2 years, they have had like 10 new features that's again services launched, right? That's the type of innovation that's happening there. Now, what it means for the business, right? The performance is growing exponentially, the price is dropping. The IT budgets are imploding. So that's where we are seeing that, the compute costs need to come down, the storage costs need to come down, but at a much better performance. So what has happened to this industry? If you look at it, I'm not going to beat this to death. All of us have talked about it. I'm echoing a very similar sentiments. One is there's a huge vendor lock-in, with the traditional players. There's extremely poor interoperability. 20 to 30%, is completely locked in with the existing vendors, right? There's a huge issue there. The second one is all this business have been a big cash cow, and again echoing Tarkan's point, right? If I'm able to buy at $30, right? Why was I paying $1,000 for a terabyte, right? That the lack of innovation purely because there's a cash cow for them. They have monopolized. Innovators' dilemma. Everything falls into place. Yep. The cost is extremely high for us, right? And net, what's happening with the hyperscale needs, the scale constraints, they are not open, there's a huge vendor lock-in, to get it interoperable is going to be a big job. So what we did was, taking into this consideration, we really thought, yes, there's going to be always a traditional infrastructure play, but that's slowly dying down or at a much faster pace, to Tarkan's point. So what we did, Wipro, what we did is, we have created what we call as an open data center architecture, right? Built on multiple solution stacks, for different use case for the business. The way we have built it is on commodity, on proprietary hardware. Obviously, it's all done on x86. The way we have done it is move the intelligence more and more to the software. So that's what we have effectively achieved. Bringing in scalability, flexibility, agility, and at a cost which is like 30 to 55% cheaper, the total cost of ownership. And there are use cases I can talk about along with Nexenta, which we did as recent as like a couple of months back, where we went in and said that even your stuff is cheaper than the public cloud, right? At an enterprise level security and the scalability and flexibility you need, right? The way we have done it, there are 5 things which we think it's very important to move it into open data center. Number 1 is the agility. The way we have done it is it's highly automated, very standardized, running on open stacks, making it provisioning extremely easier for anybody who's deploying it. The second one is for us is the simplicity. We have moved the intelligence more and more, we have abstracted the complexity, moved the intelligence to a central layer. The management, there is a single pane of view for the business, IT, making it so easy to deploy. So that's the second one which we have done. The third one is elasticity. The way we have done it is, it's easily, we can easily integrate it with a public cloud. A spin out and spin in depending on the workloads. When you want burst workloads, you can move it onto a public cloud. Otherwise, you can have it on this, your open data center. The fourth one here is, the way I work with the traditional infrastructure which you have. So you can have an ease of transition from a traditional infrastructure into an open cloud. we move the tier 2, tier 3 workloads very quickly, then move the tier 1 workloads. And we have done cases with Nexenta where we have moved VDI, video surveillance workloads extremely easy within a couple of weeks, right, with no disruption. So that's the third part. The fourth one, what we have trying to bring in is obviously AI is a big part of our open data center today. We have brought in our OHMS platform into this one, working very seamlessly with Nexenta programs. What we have done is we have got the intelligence built into our data centers. What it effectively does is, one, it does there is going to be a preventive maintenance which it automatically triggers, right? And when there is a capacity planning that is required, the IT guys don't need to get involved. It always triggers, hey, this is the type of load I'm seeing, and that's the capacity planning, right? So that's what it does. Third one, the way we work between, like I said, the traditional and non-traditional, it's a way of putting a disruptive technology in a non-disruptive way. That's what it achieves. Net, if I just summarize it in one word, it's cloud on your terms. It's absolutely a cloud on your terms. It's completely, the way what public cloud can offer you, but an enterprise level security. And how we are able to achieve it, I need to thank Nexenta, the way we have worked very, very closely with Nexenta on this one, right? The way we have realized this vision today is with Nexenta, with an x86 architecture, and definitely, as we move into the future, we will have Lenovo into this framework as well. Just a quick point on how we have worked on Nexenta. It's a strong relationship with Nexenta we have today, 3-year relationship. Like Tarkan pointed out, first thing I want to talk about is we drink our own champagne, right? Completely our data centers are running on Nexenta. There was, any new infrastructure or new facilities which we acquire, our CIO was very clear, we will run it on Nexenta, right? So that's something which is given now, right? That's something which we have done. Second one, as we go to the market, we have seen like completely together we have disrupted the healthcare industry, the banking and finance industry. We have developed solutions, use cases on workloads of video surveillance, VDI, backup archival, completely ready to use reference architectures, right? So that's something which we have achieved, right? We have been participating with Nexenta in almost all events like this. And the most interesting part for us is Nexenta is a customer for us as well, right? So we are participating with Nexenta in their next generation programs, in their object storage programs, to ensure that we really know what the market is expecting and how we will disrupt the market together. So that's my quick summary. And really, I'm very happy to be here. I really am thinking the way we can together disrupt with Nexenta, Intel, and Lenovo, I think we can take this market with a blow and a wind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ram. Actually, thank you so much, Henry, David, Ran, and Ram. On that note, as we talked about earlier, we're about 15 minutes to go. I would love to ask folks to use Twitter handle Nexenta, and also there I know some questions coming in from earlier as we opened up this via an announcement this morning. But just to recap, as people are taking time, typing up some questions and so on. I know there were some questions already happening during the presentations when Henry was speaking. I think people are seeing those numbers and primary research that 451 did. People want to ask questions. Just quick recap. I think it's a good thing to do for a minute or so. Basically, a big announcement today with Nexenta and Lenovo. A predefined, certified, optimized reference architectures around small, medium, and large systems based on Lenovo's leading x86 Intel infrastructure, supporting all-flash, hybrid, and all-disk environments, again tying to Intel's storage program around their leading SSDs and beyond, and tying a single point of contact service and support capability, and taking the Nexenta software and Lenovo architecture next level. Again, no rip and replace, no vendor lock-in, and there's no bait and switch, no customer base to protect with a legacy vision, all new, all flexibility, all agility, as Ram talked about. And Henry covered some primary research, how the storage capacity exponentially growing, while the storage budgets are decreasing or flat at best. We had to be much more efficient, and software-defined data centers with a software-defined storage vision brings us today. Again, we're seeing from our customers today, basically legacy cost around $1,000 per terabyte, negotiated down prices. Today, we're reaching to $300 to $400 per terabyte, all in, all flash environments. I'm not talking about all disk or hybrids, all flash, very high performance environments, changing the game as David talked about. And David shared Lenovo's vision, some of the arrays, and how they're going to market. And obviously our next phase of it is taking no prisoners, having that joint R&D taking the next level with factory loaded appliances for those customers who want to choose an end-to-end box to have fast time to market with intelligence and security built into it with partners like Intel. Rand talked about from an Intel's perspective, their seamless data services vision. And obviously, their infrastructure is second to none with x86, designs, new designs. They're also announcing on at several events, and I know there are a lot of new announcements coming up. And obviously, based on new chip infrastructure and new standards around NVMe, which is super exciting for us as companies like Lenovo and Nexenta. And Ram talked about how Wipro, as a systems integrator in the world, as the leading systems integrator. This is not a joke, folks. This is almost a $10 billion company with almost 160,000 employees, Ram, around the world, deploying basically Fortune 10,000 data centers with a practice called Open Data Center. And that's a vision never seen. And I actually am very open. There are other service and system integrator companies calling us and saying, what are you guys doing with Wipro? Because we're losing business to Wipro with this vision. Can we do the same thing with you? Since Ram is super visionary, and Abid and the TK and the entire Wipro team, what they've done is really difficult to match. The people investment and the IP investment. And as a matter of fact, and Henry, don't get upset on this, but Gartner did their data center and storage conference. You should do the same just last December. And actually, Anuj Bala, the CTO of Wipro, was the keynote speaker at this event. First time the Gartner brought in a software-defined data center as a keynote. There were hundreds of people in the room, and they could not believe. Actually, Wipro and companies like large organizations are deploying software-defined data centers today on x86 infrastructure, cutting cost 60 to 70%. And when he used this, reference himself, what they're doing internally, there were CIOs, Fortune 500 CIOs in the room. They could not believe what was happening. This is moving from niche to mainstream, and we're super happy to be here in San Francisco, live webinar. Available from St. Regis Hotel. And obviously we're going to repeat that in multiple kickoff meetings with Lenovo and Nexenta, as well as Wipro in multiple locations starting this month. And obviously super happy to be here to answer some of the questions. So I'm going to look at Emily. Emily is our Chief Questionnaire Officer. She's collecting all that questions from Twitter and other locations. Emily, any questions you want to get started with?
How is the Lenovo Nexenta offering different from other software-defined storage solutions?
So let me give you my 2 cents, and then maybe David can. Actually, we kind of covered this. Maybe some folks came on the call late, as it happens on these type of webinars. Number one, both companies do not have a necessarily exclusive relationship. That's number one, very openly. But very tight strategic relationship. It has R&D, go-to-market aspects to it. And one thing that we've done is we just wanted to make sure there's a company who doesn't have a legacy business to protect. Lenovo is basically coming in, basically leading in the x86 platform, saying, I don't have a storage business. We build our storage business unit. There's a new GM. David Lincoln is here because of that reason over the past 4 or 5 months. And they are taking no prisoners and moving the marketplace, taking basically that vision to the customers as a choice. And that single point of contact, service and support, super innovative. That's very important. Level 1, level 2 support capabilities from Nexenta and Lenovo. And obviously, Nexenta's scale out and scale up integration with one single pane of glass orchestration is unique for Lenovo. With the right optimization is different than many others. And obviously the cost point and obviously service and delivery behind that is going to be much more integrated as we move forward to the second phase of this announcement, as well as David also alluded to around factory integration and so on. David, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, I'm just saying everything.
Yeah, I mean...
You need to stop me.
Yeah, what he said. No, I mean, the one thing I'd say is that, I mean, just to start, nobody on the planet does hardware better than Lenovo, period, full stop. So you got that as a building block. And then we've already, as I said, we're moving fast. We got the RAs in place today, and we're going to do bigger and better things.
And one last point to add to what David said, I just forgot. We mentioned this earlier. Intel is a big supporter behind this with their infrastructure. So as of today, actually we have Intel white papers written and certified and tested on Intel architecture around their standards, right, from NVMe to x86 and some of the SSD work we're working on.
Yep.
So all of these things are already, locked in, tested, available online, that folks can go to Nexenta website, Intel website, or Lenovo website, or Nexenta website, as I said, can download these white papers and learn about them. They are both technical documents, reference architecture specific documents, as well as solutions about workloads and which workload has the best array for it. So it's a very buttoned down, locked in delivery model. And again, very openly, our goal is with Wipro's open data center model and delivery to deliver these solutions in the best cost-effective, freedom of choice model to customers with real service and support behind that. And that's also very unique, as Wipro is jumping into this as well with the partnership in a big way, internally and externally.
And let me add to this too.
Sure.
Is that I know now I'm speaking for Lenovo because this could get Tarkan in a little bit of trouble. But just speaking from Lenovo's perspective, I know some of our competitors have sort of dabbled in this space, but it's been said by a number of folks here, we don't have any legacy business to protect. We don't. We haven't made any giant multi-billion-dollar acquisitions in the last year or last 5 years. We don't have to pay off any loans. So, I know there's some guys that are sort of dabbling in this, and I'm speaking for Dave Lincoln. This isn't for Tarkan. I don't want to get him in trouble with his other partners, but Lenovo is frickin' all in. We're going to drive the hell out of this thing. We're investing. We got our engineers talking together. Hey, and what else can I say? We're coming.
Thank you.
Next question, Nexenta, do you plan to build an InfiniFlash platform with Lenovo?
Look, this is obviously the first foray is with Intel SSD environment and so on. I mean, InfiniFlash, you're referring probably SanDisk. I don't want to give hard palpitations to Ran either on this one. But look, its choice is part of this vision. On the SanDisk platform, SanDisk now, I don't know if it's legally approved yet, but it's part of Western Digital acquisition. Intel partners with a lot of vendors. Intel has an open system vision as well. As we talked about it very openly, of course, every vendor in the space wants to have some self-serving go-to-market model. We have partnerships with SanDisk and InfiniFlash, who's been very, very successful. Same thing with Micron, same thing with Samsung we've done work with in the past. Obviously, we're doing Western Digital, and some of these companies are investors in our company, in Nexenta. But having said all this, we believe Intel has the leading platform in this because they own also the x86 infrastructure from an innovation perspective. So we believe this partnership announcement today with the Intel inclusion and support, and with our support for Intel standards, are going to open huge opportunities for customers at cost levels never seen before. I think Ran had some slides, and I think these slides are going to be available through the video as well, the webinar. Those don't require any other additional statement, to be honest with you. They're pretty straightforward. Do you want to add anything, Ran, to that?
Thank you. Well said, Tarkan. I think we continue to believe customer choice is important, and that's fine, but we also believe Intel's value and the product of Intel, the value of Intel products will continue to outshine. And we've got a strong roadmap in the NVM space. We're very well engaged with you on this.
So tying to this again, as David also mentioned, there are other architectures, other SKUs, other jointly factory-loaded R&D up sort of locked in appliances available with other arrays as well with our companies. So does Intel have with other vendors as well. So as Ran said and David mentioned, choice is everything, and open world. That's why companies like Wipro are developing, and Wipro is leading in this in a big way, open data center initiatives, giving choice to the customers.
Sorry, if I might. Yeah, and actually, I've talked a lot about the kind of the burgeoning partnership with Nexenta, but Lenovo has a fantastic relationship with Intel. We've got some wicked smart propeller heads working together in joint innovation centers. They're working on NVMe together. So Intel's doing what it does best. Lenovo's doing what we do best. Nexenta doing what we do best. Wipro doing what, it's just a winning combination. And end of the day, choice. And, I sorry to trumpet this, but Lenovo's not locked in. And so we don't need to lock people in either. We don't need to overcharge people. We can bring you choice. We can bring you TCO. I mean, it's really the value prop here, right?
Very true.
And we are out of time for questions.
Emil, that's it. No more questions. I think there was a list, but super.
Sorry,
Thank you
Ram.
so much. So again, on the close,
Same here,
I
buddy.
want to thank all my friends, all these colleagues here. Again, Henry, thank you for your insights. Key thing, again, 451 does a great job with the primary research. For those folks who are on the webinar saw, these are actual questions they asked to CIOs. And again, I want to thank our friends, David Lincoln at Lenovo. More to see you, obviously, from you all, David's team globally, as well as Ran Kurup from Intel, and obviously our dear friend from Wipro. Again, Tarkan Maner here from Nexenta. Thank you for joining us. Please email us. All our contact information is on the slides as well. And we'll look forward to having the next announcement with you again in the next couple of weeks at the OpenStack Summit in Austin, Texas. And we're going to see you again with a live webinar. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
All right, cool, thanks.